Hey everybody, Larry Lawton here. Got a good video for you today. I did probation last video, and I'm gonna be doing the halfway house today. A lot of people asked about that. Before I get started, please check me out on YouTube member programs, Patreon member program, on Discord. Check my merch out, check my book out, Gangster Redemption. People ask where they can get it. Just look in the bottom of the information here in this video, and there's always a link in any one of our videos for the book. I'm gonna get right to this one. This one's a pretty good video because it's important, because it's the continuation of getting out and trying to get out and trying to be a new person about it. It's funny because today I got a phone call, which I'll be answering. It was a supervisor from a probation department, and I want to say George, but I'm going to be calling him back. And he said, Larry, you're spot on about probation, about how some of them want to put you back in prison. Now, this is a supervisor who said he has information for me, so I will be calling him back and doing a follow-up on that as well. Let's get into what a halfway house is and how that works and how that is supposed to help you reintegrate back into society and how it's failing us again. And I'm not here to beat up on the system. I'm here to open people's eyes about the system. I'm here to show you what doesn't work and why it doesn't work. And obviously there are ways to fix it if they want it to be fixed. That's the biggest problem I think I have. I don't know if they really want the system to be fixed. That's sad. But let me get into what a halfway house is. A halfway house is supposed to be a transitional housing so you can reintegrate back into society. Literally, you go from a prison to the halfway house to probation to total freedom. That is supposed to be the steps to success. Oftentimes, it's the steps to failure. And I think it's just money grabs and money making. And I'll tell you why, and you're gonna hear about it right now. So when you're in prison and you do X amount of time, you get assigned a halfway house for X amount of months. When I was in, the most halfway house you can get was 6 months. I think they've upped that since to a year. But for the halfway house, you can get up to 6 months when I was in. And obviously after you do 11 straight years behind the walls, you wanna get out. Out in any way is better than in. At least you think that way. You might know what to do here in prison, but you still don't have the freedoms of a halfway house or probation, obviously. And I still think you don't, but here's the reasons why they set you up to fail. Because I went back from a halfway house back into prison. I did. So here I am, I'm in prison, and you do what they call the pre-release program. Boy, talk about shit. Nothing is done there. It's just a big waste of time. They tell you, oh, when you get out, you're going to have to get a driver's license. You're going to have to get employed. And they try to tell you stuff like this. Means absolutely nothing. So here you are, you see your team. In prison, you have a team. You have a unit manager, a case manager, and a counselor. Well, I see my team and they say, Lawton, you qualified. You're going to get five months halfway house. Okay. So they give you a halfway house. At this point, it's supposed to be the closest to your house. Obviously, at this time, I didn't have one close to my house. There is no halfway house in Brevard County, Florida. I'm talking the federal system now. So they had a halfway house in Tampa Bay, Florida. So they assigned me to this halfway house in Tampa, Florida. This is when they give me a bus ticket from Forest City, Arkansas to the halfway house. And I had money in my pocket. They let you go alone. You're not in shackles. You're in street clothes. And I go like this with street clothes because you can get clothes sent in, but I didn't. I got the clothes they gave me, which was a white polo shirt, a pair of jeans, the Bobo sneakers. You had no boots for me at that time. And I looked like a prison. I just looked like a ex-con. I'm not going to go into the whole case of getting there, because by getting there, I couldn't even, I guess, buy a cup of coffee. I was totally institutionalized. I didn't know it, and if it wasn't for my cousin Cheryl, I wouldn't probably be here today, because that young lady saved my life. Because when I got off that bus and tried to buy a sandwich, and I couldn't because I couldn't make a decision, it was amazing that I didn't snap and kill somebody or go back. It just is amazing. And I understand why it can happen. You think people are looking at you, you're scared, you don't understand the whole system. And that's called sensory overload. The average inmate makes 100 choices a day. You will make probably 1,500 choices a day. You cannot do anything about that unless it's time outside. I guess this is what the halfway house is supposed to do. But again, they don't. They don't try to reintegrate you into society. It's a shame, but they don't. And let me explain. You get to the halfway house, okay? So when you sign into the halfway house, they send you to a room. Now, in the room we had is the back bathroom, which was a normal bath, a lot better than prison. Let me explain this. We had 6 bunks in the room. So there were 3, and they weren't bunk beds. They were just a bed, a bed, and a bed, a bed, a bed, and a bed. And in the back is the bathroom, and it had a shower. It had a toilet, maybe even 2 toilets, and a little area there to change if you want. So that was somewhat privacy for me. Obviously, that was pretty good. You don't get that in prison. And there was a door on the room going in. Now, this halfway house was in Tampa. It was run by Goodwill Industries, and they come in. When you came into the halfway house, you got off the bus, and it was a bus route not far right from the prison. You could walk out and onto a main road in Tampa. But they bring you into the halfway house. Now, again, I got off the bus, and I had to take a cab from the bus, which was the big bus. I'm talking about the Greyhound buses now. They dropped me off at the bus depot there, wherever it is in Tampa, and I had to take a cab to the halfway house. Now, I remember this vividly. I was late, not due to me, due to the bus, and I was scared. I thought they were going to arrest me. I didn't know what happened. Of course, the minute I got off the bus, I called. They said, okay, don't worry, just get here. And I got there, and again, I'm lucky I had money in my pocket to do that. Because if I had no money in my pocket to do that, how would I get there? Hitchhike? They're not giving you a free bus ride. Anybody's not going to pick you up. So you think about that. They're supposed to give you gate money, but $25 gate money, it's not going to get you too far. Probably wouldn't even get you with food on the way from the bus to the halfway house. But I get to the halfway house. When you went in here, they had a booth here, and they had a guard in the booth. I don't know if he was a guard. They call him a guard, and he's in the booth. Now, he signs you in. So when you get there, you have to sign the sheet, who you are. It gives you a whole bunch of paperwork. You sit down. You have to fill out all this paperwork for this halfway. So now, they know you're coming because you're money to them. So then they give you the next day, so you get in there. Now, it's like going into any other prison. There's other guys in there from prison. Now it's different. Now, I came from a maximum security prison. So when you come from a prison like that, there could be people in that halfway house who came from camps. People come from low securities and stuff of that nature. Now, when I did go, I was in technically a medium, but it was a gang unit, and it was in Forest City, Arkansas. And it was a pretty wild prison. It was brand new, so it was still getting its feet. So I come to the prison. I'm still on edge. I'm an old convict, did a lot of time. So people in this halfway house, some people did a couple of years, some did 3, 4, 5, 7, some did 20. So there were people in this halfway house that I could relate to. And, as a guy walking into a new facility, because that's what it is to me, you're scoping everything out. They don't give you a tour of the place and say, oh, here's this, you go here, here's the routine, here's an orientation pamphlet. I didn't get any of that shit. You got to figure it out. And, it's easier for me, a guy like me who was a convict, number one, to a communicator. I mean, I am a communicator. But getting me back into the halfway house, believe it or not, I felt better because I was locked up again. I went from being free on that bus to now being back to locked up. And being locked up actually made me feel good. Believe it or not, I know that sounds crazy. So now you start talking to other people in the halfway house, and you get to know the routines with them. They'll tell you get a guy who goes, you see that? Back then now, you got to remember, I got out in 2007. So when I got out in 2007, computers were out there already. The internet was out there and all that stuff. I had no idea about it. I didn't understand how to use the equipment, couldn't turn on a computer, no less do what I do today. But anyway, there was just a one computer. But their computer wasn't for us to go surf the web. Their computer was for you to get jobs, fill out jobs that were online. Because at that time, jobs started going away from coming in at first. They would come and they'd tell you to go fill out an application online. So you had to do that. So you come in there, you find out what room you're in, you go to the room, and when you walk in the room, there was a guy in the room, I remember that, and I said, well, what bunk is mine? He goes, over there were 2 bunks empty. He goes, take what you want. So I just took my bunk, put my stuff down. I was probably a little bit tired because I do remember laying down for a second. I think I took a piss and that was it. And then I laid down on the bunk for a second and I was like, I'm kind of here. And now I'm in still these clothes that I have that are just a pair of jeans. I told you, a white polo shirt and these Bobo sneakers. So I had money, because I had money in my account from prison. So I had over $275 on me. So I'm able to go buy stuff, do things. So you start talking to people, and now here's the halfway house. There's nobody to take you, so to speak, by the hand and give you a lift and say, this is what you do. If it wasn't for other inmates or convicts, I call them, that helped you through it, you'd have a tough time. Now, they had a kitchen in there. Now, in the mornings, they had bag breakfast and a bag lunch for people. Because if you went to work, you can take a bag lunch with you. And in the morning, they had, it wasn't like they had a cook come in and make you eggs or any of that. None of that. You had a refrigerator there. I guess a contractor would come in and put bag lunch. They did have dinner there every night, which was a cooked dinner. And you'd get to sit down at the dinner if you weren't working. Now, the function of the halfway house, again, is to help you integrate to society. Well, at this time, cell phones are pretty popular. Matter of fact, it was harder and harder for us to find a phone booth. Because when you go for a job interview, or they make you go out and get a job, of course. And the reason they make you go get a job is because the prison, or the halfway house, gets 25% of your salary before taxes. I'll just give you a number. If you went and made $400 a week, they would take $100 out right off the bat, and now you are still paying the taxes on the whole $400, even though they took $100 out. Now your check's not going to be $400, of course, taxes are coming out and everything. So let's say your check was $340. They're still taking $100. So it's not like they're taking that $100 and putting half of that into an account for you, or trying to help you, build up some kind of money so you can then get an apartment when you get out, maybe buy a vehicle when you get out, stuff of that nature. Now at this time I didn't have anything. I didn't have a car yet because this is where my dad gave me a Buick Skylark with a big dent down the side. My dad gave me that. So I ended up, they came over from the East Coast, which is Palm Bay, to the West Coast to give me that vehicle and see me and stuff. Because you literally had to have a visit. And to have a visit in a halfway house was no different than prison. You had to have people put on a list and stuff of that nature. Mind you, they didn't allow cell phones. The stupidest thing in the world is, why wouldn't you allow these people to have a cell phone? You're trying to help them get back into society. Why wouldn't you let them have a cell phone? It made no sense to me at all. To this day, it was probably the stupidest rule that I ever encountered in a BOP, because that's slapping you in the face saying you're not smart enough or you're not responsible enough to have a cell phone. But get on the bus, go look for a job, and be back here at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whatever time you had to sign out. Because when you went for a job interview, you had to sign out where you were going. Then when you get to where you're going, you had to call the halfway house, say, I'm here. And when you left that interview, you had to call them again and say, I'm on my way back. Now, so many things happen when you're out there. This is what got you so nervous. And I remember missing bus stops, and I rode a bus all the way to the end of the route. And the driver's looking at me like, what are you doing? Because he's taking a break at the end of the route. And I'm sitting on the bus. He said, this is the last stop. I said, I don't know where to go. Are you going back that way? He says, yeah. He goes, but I'm going for lunch. I said, can I just stay here? And the guy felt pity for me, I think, and he said, sure, stay on the bus. So I remember that, and that was the end of the route. So here I am going for job interviews in that way. Also, I went to Goodwill Industries. Goodwill Industries is, the Goodwill store. Believe it or not, I had shirts and clothes. I think till now I probably have, 1 or 2 things from that halfway house. Because I'm not one of these guys that have to have the best of everything. Listen, a pair of shorts or a shirt or whatever logo it is, because you can get a shirt for 50 cents or $1 or even free. In fact, this halfway house gave you a credit at the Goodwill store. So I ended up getting sneakers. You're not getting Jordans. You're not getting anything nice. You're just getting a pair of sneakers, which I don't care anyway. To this day, I don't care, as long as they're comfortable enough to walk in. So now, here's how they work in the halfway house. Now you have to go get a job. You try to get a job, but not this halfway house. This is in Tampa. They got you a job, and they got us a job. I remember working at a job. It was in a Verizon, selling the phone plans. Now I used to sit there and think, if only the people knew that there were ex-cons on the other end calling them, because they had automatic callers, and you go in and you wear headphones and you have to make calls and you try to make sales with these people to re-up their accounts, and you're getting their last four of their social security number, their credit card number, and I'm thinking to myself, does the public really know what's going on here? Probably not, but it is what it is. And now that's the first time I actually got laid. Because when I got out of prison, obviously, you're thinking, oh shit, you get horny. This is not prison anymore. You're seeing people, and people dress up and talk to you and everything else. So I happened to get lucky. I was in this phone bank. It's what they call them, call centers, and they actually had a van that would pick the people up from the halfway house and bring you to the job, and then bring you back. And there was like 8 of us or 10 of us that worked in that facility, because if you couldn't get a job somewhere else, they put you in there. Now, I don't know what racket they had with the halfway house to get this kind of service, and what kickbacks were going on. I have no idea or anything of that nature, but I did get lucky. I met a nice girl who was next to me teaching me, and she was a girl who did some time herself. Before you know it, we're playing with each other and doing shit, and went out to her car, and I got laid in her car, and it was great. You're under the table, fucking getting jacked off and shit. I know it's crazy. Sorry, that's just the way it is, and it's normal shit. I tell it like it is. Well, it was funny because you start figuring things out. I show you this. So in the halfway house, they did not let you have a phone. Well, if you remember the old phones, the flip phones that can go in here, I had a flip phone. So I ended up being smart, typical prisoner stuff. I bought this transistor radio, and it worked at the time. But now, of course, see what it is? It's totally empty. But when I put a cell phone in here, put it back together. Now look, this is now my cell phone's in here. The weight of it, you couldn't tell. It didn't shake, it didn't do anything. In fact, look at this. Now, back in 2007, guys getting out of prison didn't have headphones and buds and all. I had this. So they checked you when you came back from wherever you were going to get to the store, doing something. You had to get a pass to do this. When you did it, I would come back with the cell phone in here, and I would come back like I'm listening to a show. Now, you weren't allowed to have your radio on when you were coming back into the halfway, so I would go, hey, to the guy, I go like this, and I'd shut it like and I'd put it down, and then they'd search you, search your bag, do everything. They could lift this. It was the weight didn't move. They didn't put it on, and then they thought I had a regular radio, and I got through that thing every time. And it was amazing, because if you guys are a little bit older and you remember the cell phones are the ones that you had to hit like A, B, or C. A was 1, B was BB twice, and then C, and then you'd have to go to the next letter and actually type it out like that. That's how you text. That's how I learned to text when I got out, on a regular flip phone. And it's amazing what you could learn, especially now I'm in the halfway house and I'm using a cell phone. And it's amazing how you had to feel. I felt so like, wow, this sucks. Holy shit. I don't believe I'm doing this shit. But I'm in there, I'm in the bathroom, I'm trying to make calls, and because they would put you back in prison for stupid shit like that. It was crazy. They think they're trying to help you, get back in the side. We couldn't even find phone booths then. That's 2007. Could not find phone booths. No phones were in them. They want you to call the freaking back to the half house. You know what they used to say? Well, just ask the guy that's interviewing you if you can use the phone. How does that look? Hey, can I use your phone? I gotta call the halfway house? I mean, it's so fucking stupid. But that's what they made you do. Well, I lasted at that halfway house for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, maybe a month and a half, 2 months, before they opened a newer halfway house in Orlando, closer to my house in Brevard County, in Palm Bay. So they transferred, I don't know, there were about 20 of us that were probably from the West Coast, from Vero Beach up to Volusia County, and we were going back to Brevard County or Orlando, so they were bringing us closer. They were opening a new halfway house. So we get to this new halfway house, and it was totally different than Tampa. Tampa wasn't even as bad as this. So this is what happens. So I get to this halfway house. Now I got a car. My dad gave me my blue Aqua Skylark, Buick Skylark, and I was allowed to drive it to the new halfway house. As a matter of fact, I brought a couple of friends with me, put our stuff in there, and we went and we had a report. You had a report by a certain time. Again, you go to jail. So we get to this new halfway house, and it was nice, brand new, but it had like what they call a common area, like a dormitory style living. Now, I never lived in a dormitory style living ever in prison because I was too high security. Well, now they had this big room, which was all dormitory styles, bunk beds, and a big bathroom and all that. And I ended up going there, and the place was run by a 28-year-old kid. 28-year-old kid. Now, this kid comes in, gives everybody all right, everybody, stand up near your bunk, inspection time. What the fuck? I'm like blown away. I just starting to get comfortable at that halfway house. They take you to a new one. I got a 28-year-old kid talking to me like I'm a fucking kid. Now, I'm a 46-year-old man at this time. Just did a ton of time, and I'm like, who the fuck's this guy talking to? Well, I listened through the whole thing. They have to go get the job again. This place had no idea, had no bus passes, nothing. What do you do? Where do you go? How do you get a license? Because we did get our license and stuff at the halfway house in Tampa. They let you do that, and that's what they got, your driver's license or an ID. Most of us didn't have driver's license. I did. I had a driver's license. It was actually still good. I just had to take an eye test and a whole bunch of other stuff, and then I got my driver's license. Well, this guy takes me in the halfway house, and they start treating us like they're like we're kids. Literally, a 28-year-old kid looked like he was fucking a baby, and he's yelling at us like I don't know what the power came over this kid. So I'm sitting there, and they're in the offices, and they call me in because I didn't put a visitors list in on time. And I don't want to visit. I want to go. Now, at this time, I'm thinking, hey, I only got about 3 months left. Let me do my time. Fuck this. And I said, okay, I'll just fucking do my time, and I'm good. So this guy comes yelling at me, and I fucking snapped. I said, who the fuck you think you're talking to? I'll fucking kill you, you motherfucker. This guy's fucking eyes light up. He runs into the office. He locks the door, and he calls the fucking marshals, the U.S. Marshals. Well, they violate me immediately. The marshals come, 2 guys in a van. They come in, they talk to him, they come to me. And I told these marshals, they were pretty cool. Now, they already take me. They put me in handcuffs again. They put me back in the van, and they're taking me to the Seminole County Jail. And the marshal says to me, he goes, I go, hey, listen, I remember I'm in handcuffs, and they say to me, hey, listen, I go, that guy's a fucking jerk off. Who does he think he's talking to? I'm a 46-year-old man who just got out of fucking prison doing hard time. He's talking to me like I'm some kind of punk? Who the fuck does he think he's talking to? Marshals were laughing. They really were laughing. And they knew it was going to be rough because they knew what they're dealing with. Now they're bringing all these ex-cons in here, and you can't treat them like that. I did find out later that guy was fired in 3 weeks or a month or whatever it was, and they got another one, and it took so many more directors of this halfway house because they don't know what they're doing. But they take me, Larry, back to jail. I go back to Seminole County Jail. In fact, they take me to the felony pod where there's murderers and everything, but don't bother me. I was just in prison with fucking murderers that are never getting out. I know how to handle myself. They saw me, the way I had my demeanor, my look, my tattoos. They know I'm not a fucking rookie just coming up on this felony pod. There were guys with murder, not convicted yet, up for murder. One guy killed his family or some shit, crazy crap. And I was talking to them. Matter of fact, they gave me a bunk up there, and it was a kid for robbery. He's on the bottom bunk. I said, kid, get out of the bunk. I said, I get the bottom bunk. He looked at me. I said, listen to me, motherfucker. Get out of that fucking bunk. Get on the fucking top. He knew I was for real, and he did that. He ended up going on the top bunk. Well, I was in that county jail for about a month. And county jails suck as it is, but again, I knew my time was at near end. They weren't charging me. I found out that. They did give me what they call a prison infraction, but they didn't do anything about it. They just put me back. I literally was sent back to Coleman. This is Central Florida. When I walked onto the compound in Coleman, I saw Vic Arena, who was a mob boss. Other guys, Lawton, what are you doing? Hey, Lawton. And I'm like that guy that says, who the fuck comes back to prison? Well, I did, but I knew I was going to only be there for, I think it was 3 weeks left. So it was like going to old home week in prison. I ended up doing that, and then I ended up getting a bus back to Brevard County, and I was out of the halfway house, back onto probation, and you can watch that video again. If you haven't watched that video, it just was out last week. The reason these halfway houses don't work is that, again, they're not focusing on here, the mentality. They're not focusing on a man who was in prison for X amount of years and what his demeanor is going to be like. How are you going to help him reintegrate into society when computers were out already? I had to resort to being a convict and putting a cell phone in a fucking rigged radio. So that's just making me be a criminal again. And people say, no, you just got to, follow that rule. I get it, but if you're trying to help me, fucking goddamn help me. Don't say you're trying to help me and then try to fuck me. If you just say, listen, we're going to try to do everything we can to fucking make you violate. My head is different. I figure things out in a different way. I adapt. Well, they made me adapt back to being a criminal while also telling the public, hey, we're trying to help these people get back into society. No, they weren't. That halfway house, I find out later, because I'm in Brevard County, I'm saying, I got to open one of these. Do you know they get, at that time when I researched it, maybe 8 years ago, they get $60 a day per inmate. This is from the federal government. And that inmate has to give them 25% of their salary every week. So, and they get to put you home on house arrest. You can go home on house arrest after so long, and they use that bed again. So that bed is literally being sold maybe 3 times. Because if you got a guy who's 6 months in a halfway house, he goes home in 3 months, and he's on house arrest, which he's paying for now. He's paying for a monitor on his ankle. He's paying for everything. And then another guy comes in, gets that bed, and they put him on a wait. Now that other guy's still technically in this bed for a month, and this other guy's 2 months, and they got another guy they do that to. So they're renting or selling or charging the federal government 3 people. So they're charging $180 a day for so long, X amount of time, and they keep turning it over to make money. They don't give a fuck if Larry goes back to prison. They didn't give a fuck what happened. They're not trying to help you. I didn't have a counsel come up to me and say, what happens? Lawton, how can we help you get back into society? How can we help you understand how to get a job? Understand how to talk to a civilian? Understand how to communicate with somebody who's not been in prison for a while? Because believe me, you can't. How about the feeling of people looking at you in a cop car and a siren in the distance and you fucking get the shakes? They don't give you any kind of training like that. It's throw you to the wolves. Let's all make our money. If they go back, they go back. In fact, it was so bad, when my brother got out, I made sure I helped him through the process. When Paul Tellini got out, was a good friend of mine, he'll tell you, I fucking helped him from the minute he got off the airplane, I helped him to in the halfway house and transition and everything I'm doing. So, until they realize that we need to build these places to truly help people, it's a sham. It's a fucking con. And it's a con by the government. So don't ever think, oh, we're just the cons. Think of who the real cons are. And that's the government. So that's why halfway houses are another problem, and failure. They don't work. With that said, I hope you understand some here. I hope you learned a little something. Thanks for your support, everybody. You know, it means a lot. Please don't make bad choices so you go back to prison or go into prison in any way. I don't want to see that. I hate to hear that. I think it hurts me in here. So please don't let that happen. Have a great day, everybody. Please stay safe. See you next time.